What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is Josh, one of your Linode developer advocates, and today I want to show you guys a relational database called MySQL. And MySQL is a foundational component of the LAMP and LIMP stack, and it's mainly used for content management systems like WordPress or Joomla and other applications. And what makes MySQL one of the most popular databases, other than it being free and open source, it is optimized for database reads, meaning that it works best when data gets queried frequently and new data gets added less often. This is common behavior for databases supporting general purpose websites, e-commerce sites, and directory applications. So sit back, relax, and let's get started on showing you guys MySQL. Now, starting off, this video is considered an introduction, and I will cover some of the basics like logging in as well as managing databases and tables. So let's hop over to my server so I can show you guys how to install MySQL Server first, and then we'll go through some basic usage. Okay, cool. So I'm SSH'd into my Linode server running Ubuntu 20.04. And let's walk through the installation process of MySQL Server. And the first thing you want to do is update the server as well as refresh the repositories. So this looks like sudo apt updates, and once you run this command, it'll let you know if the system has any updates for you, and then it'll also refresh those repositories for us. Now we can install MySQL. So let's just type sudo apt and then install, and the package name is MySQL-server. So let's press enter, and I'll go through the install and it will add the package to the server. And now that it's installed, let me show you guys how to actually check and verify that MySQL Server is actually running. And all we have to do is type sudo systemctl and then status and then MySQL.service and press enter. And as you can see right here, it shows that the server is running and stored it as well as enabled. So whenever you restart the system, MySQL will start up soon as the server actually comes up. So let's go down and clear the screen and show you guys how to actually log into it. And it's very simple. It's a command called MySQL. And then what you have to do is specify the user account that you want to log in using. And what we're going to use is the root account. And you guys can do this just for demonstration purposes. The next thing you want to type is -p behind it for the password. And one other thing I forgot, since I have a regular user account, I have to use sudo in order to run this command in order to log into the root account. So let's press enter. And it's basically asking you for the root account password. So all we have to do is type in that password, press enter, and that'll log us into our MySQL server. Okay, cool. So now that we logged into it, I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about it. It basically says server version 8.0.28. That's the current version of MySQL. So MySQL 8 is installed on this server. That's the most latest package that's available in Ubuntu's repository. As you can see, MySQL is owned by Oracle. It's a free and open source application, but it is owned by Oracle. And it says Oracle is a registered trademark of Oracle Corporation and or its affiliates. And the main thing I wanted to point out to you guys is that as soon as you log into it, it obviously shows you the help. So if you ever need help, as soon as you log in, it tells you the commands to actually get help. So let's type that first one, which is help, and then the semicolon. And just so you guys know, everything you run within here is almost like running a query. And the way you end a query or a line is with the semicolon or \G. So let's press enter because I wanted to at least show you guys some of the commands you can actually run on your MySQL server. And I'll just quickly run through a few of them, but you got your clear, connect, delimiter, exit is \Q, so that'll get you out of the server. Prompt quit, so \Q to quit MySQL altogether, and a couple other kind of shortcuts that you can actually type, as well as the commands. So now that I showed you guys that, let's go on and hop into the fun part, which is looking at and managing databases. Now, the way to show existing databases within the server, there's a command called show databases, and it's very simple to type in and use, but all you have to do is type show databases, and then, like I said, you have to end each line with a semicolon, or each command with a semicolon. So press enter, and I'll show you the actual databases that are on the server. Now, these databases, or systems databases, they come with MySQL when it gets installed. Like for instance, there's the information schema, there's a MySQL database, there's a performance schema, and a systems database as well. And once you create new databases on a server, they'll show up under this list when you run show databases. So I just wanted to quickly show you guys that these are built-in databases that are within MySQL. So now you're probably wondering, how do I create a database? Well, a simple command similar to show databases is create database, and then the actual name. So let's type that in now. Create database, and then you want to name the database whatever you want to name it. So I'm gonna name one called test DB. That'll be the first one I create, and then put the semicolon behind it, press enter, and as you can see, query OK, one row affected. That is that one database that we created. Now we can run show databases again, and we'll see that that new database has been created and is now listed under the databases on this server. And as you can see right now, testDB has been created. So we have that one database there, and that's simply how you create a database. It's super simple. And another thing, when you're in MySQL, you can press the up and down arrow, and that'll go through commands that you've already ran, or queries that you've already ran, so you can run them again if need be. And just to show you guys a little bit more detail on that database that we created, you can actually type another command, and it's called show create database, and then test DB, and then semicolon at the end, and it'll give us a little bit more details of the actual database that we created. So as you can see, database created, database, that's the two columns. And so this is the database name, which is testDB, and this is just some more information about the database that we created, as far as default character sets and just other information, whether it's encrypted or not, which is not encrypted. But I just wanted to show this command so you can look at more details of the actual database that we created. Now let's get into how to actually use this database, or add tables, create tables, and different things you can do with the actual database. And before we get to the creation of actual tables, I wanted to show you guys some of the MySQL data types. And this is important when creating the columns within your tables, at least to familiarize yourself with it and understand when to actually use certain data types based on the type of data that will go in those columns. And in order to show you guys the data types, I just wanted to pull up the documentation on Oracle's website, where it covers everything dealing with MySQL. And I won't go through them all, but there are plenty of data types, and I'll show you guys some while creating a table, but I won't go through them all. So I wanted to point this. I'll put the link down in the description of the video, but it has all the different data types, listed in their documentation. And as you can see, they have numeric data types, date, time, string, They even have JSON data types and data type default values, storage requirements, and just information about those data types. Now let's hop back over to the terminal so I can show you guys how to create a table. Okay, and now to access this newly created database, in order to create things within a database, we can use a command called use, and this will just basically specify to MySQL that I currently want to only work with the testDB database, which is the one we created. So all we have to do is type use and then testDB and press enter, and as you can see, it gives you some response back basically saying that the database has changed. So currently we are working under the testDB, so the queries that we write out will only apply to this database, and you kind of want to use this when writing your queries just to verify that what you're doing is only going to affect this one database. Now let's go through and create our first table, and it's simple command to follow, but I'll just type it out for you guys and you could just follow along if you need to. But it's create table, and what I always type is if not exist. Now let's type US data, and basically what I'm naming this table is US data. Now one thing when writing queries, if I press enter now, because I also put an open bracket, but if I press enter now, the next line will be included in this one query. Now you could type it all out as one line, but I typically do it this way. That way I can make sure I'm typing out every column correctly. So let's press enter. And as you can see, it puts that arrow there, and that just lets you know that you're continuing within this same query. And so I want to create a column called user underscore ID. And then the data type for this is int. I'm going to use init. And I'm going to also make this one auto increment. That means that it'll create a number each time you add data for a row. So if you write in data for line 1, it's going to write 1 within that ID column, and then so on as you add data to the database. So let's type auto and then underscore increment. And then we also want to make this our primary key. So I'm gonna just type it out, and I won't go through explaining that. But if you guys need a little bit more help or explanation of what I'm actually doing, then you can check out the documentation. But the primary key is typically the unique identifier for each line within the table. And that's the simplest way to explain it. And then also I want to create another column within the table, and we can call this one F underscore name. And let's make this one varchar, and then also the length of 255, and then let's make it not null. So that means it cannot be null. And then let's put a comma, and you have to put a comma in between each one of these columns. So I'm press enter, and let's put last name. So L underscore name, and then varchar again, because that'll be just a name. That's what you use typically when you're using just text. So varchar is typically what I use for the data type. But 255, and then also let's make this not null as well, and put a comma, and then also let's put date of birth. So let's do DOB just to make it simple, and then let's make this a date data type, and then let's put a comma there. We can press enter, and then now we can close out that bracket. So anytime you open up a bracket, you have to close that bracket, and then we always have to end our query with a semicolon, as you know. And so if we press enter, this should create that table under the testDB. So let's press enter, see if it happens. So I basically see my error, and I'll just go down and paste the command back in there just so we can get it done. But after date, since it's the last column, we don't have to put that comma in there. And so press enter, and then let's close it out and press enter, and that should run our query correctly. So it was a simple typo, but if it's the last column, you know, you obviously don't need that comma. It's only if you need another comma or another column created, you will put that in there. So sorry about that typo, but you want to make sure you watch what you actually type, as well as the commands that you're putting in here. You want to make sure you spell everything correctly, like create table, if, you know, not exist, you want to spell that correctly. You just want to make sure you're typing everything in correctly. And I also went in and created another query to create a separate table. So I want to create that separate table as well. And then we can show you guys how to manage those tables. So let's press enter and then close out the bracket on here, as well as the semicolon. Press enter and it'll create that table as well. Now let me go down and show you guys how to actually look at these tables if you want to. There is a command called describe, and this will basically show you some information about the table that we created, just to verify that we actually created each column properly. And all you have to do is type describe and then the table name, which the first one we created was US data, and then we could put a semicolon behind it and press enter, and that'll actually show you all the fields, and it breaks it all down by the type, as well as, you know, if it's null, if it allows null, the key, and which the user ID is the primary key, and default null, so it'll always put null there. And then the extra, that basically is the other settings that I set to that field, which is the auto increment. So it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, all the way down the amount of data that's added to the table. And let's go down and check this other one that we did, which was EU data. So European data, EU, press enter. And as you can see, it's pretty much the exact same table, but just a different name. You know what I'm saying? Now, note that these tables don't have any data in them. And this is just mainly looking at the columns of the actual table. Now, let me show you guys something cool. So there is a way to rename a table. So let's say you want to rename the EU table to, let's say, Canada table or Canada data. So CA data. You can basically type another query, and it's basically rename table. And then we have to specify the table that we want to rename, which is the EU data table, and then you put 2, and then what we want to change it to is CA data, so for Canada data, and then you put that semicolon at the end and press enter. Boom. So if we describe that table again, and we have to change it to CA, and let's make sure I type it correctly, but CA data, press enter. That'll show us that table name that we actually created. Now, one thing I actually didn't show you guys was the show command. So it's basically show tables. So you can actually show all the tables that are within this database. So now all you have to do is type show tables and then semicolon and press enter, and I'll show you the actual tables. And I should have showed you guys that first before the describe, but at least you understand how to actually look at the tables and see that they're actually there by using show table, and then you can look at describe, so you can look at how each one of the fields are actually set up. Now, I won't go into adding data into the database. I'll save that for another video, but let's go through how to actually remove the actual tables that we created. And it's very simple with this. You know, it's one command, just like creating it, but you would think it would be like remove or something like that. It's nothing like that. It's drop. So if this is your first time working with SQL, drop is the actual command that you use in order to drop something or remove something. So you can drop tables. You can also drop databases, which is the next thing I'm going to show you guys once we actually drop these tables. So let's start off. I just wanted to show you guys how to drop one of the tables. So let's start off with the US one, and all we have to do is type drop and then table, specify that, and then the table name. So we already know what it is. So US data and semicolon at the end to close it out. Press enter, and then let's go back and show tables again, just so you guys can see that the US data table is actually gone. And we could have removed both tables at the same time. I just wanted to show you guys how to actually do it with one. But let's say you had both of those there. All you had to do is type US data and then put a comma behind it, and then specify the second table that we want to delete. So we're just going to do CA data as well. But we can't do that obviously because US data is already deleted. But just wanted to go on and show you guys that you can run it against two different tables. But let's go down and put it in there so you guys can actually see what will happen. So I'm gonna try to delete both of these tables right fast, even though US data is gone. So let's go down and press enter. As you can see, unknown table. That's what will pop up under, and it specified a database name as well as the table name. Now there is a way to drop a table, but first look to see if it exists. And this is beneficial. You might not see the benefits now, but later on, once you get better with SQL, you'll understand that this is beneficial. So we could type drop, especially if you're writing code or writing out SQL procedure or some sort. So let's hit drop table if exist with an S, and then you want to specify the actual table, which is US data. So let's go down and press enter. And press enter. As you can see, the query will run, but you'll get like a warning, but it won't actually do anything. So now let's go down and drop that CA data table, and let's see the difference because we still didn't drop it. So we can press enter, and we are good to go with all the tables. Now, how do I remove the database? Like I said, it's the exact same way. So drop database and then the database name. So now let's just type show databases again and put the semicolon in it, press enter. That'll show us all our databases, and we want to remove that testDB database. So simply all you have to do is type drop database and then specify that database name, which is testDB, and press enter, or actually the semicolon at the end and press enter, and that'll actually drop that database. Now if we run the show databases again, you'll see that the testDB is actually gone. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'm sure that this will help you get started with using the MySQL server. And if you like this video, just go down and hit the thumbs up button. And if you have any questions, please check out the Linode community page, where you can get pretty much all your questions answered over there from other Linode users as well as the Linode staff. So I hope you guys have a good day, and peace.